Today, I'll introduce the one secret step to make matcha without fail. Welcome to the Japanese Tea Pedia, your number one resource for Japanese tea. This is Yuki from Tealife. Just last week, I received a message from my customer asking, "Hi Yuki, how do I mix my matcha? I can't seem to froth it well. Sometimes I nail it, sometimes it doesn't work. So how do I mix with consistency?" So this is a very common question that I get, so you're not alone. Some of the common issues might be not enough foam on the matcha is not smooth enough, you still get lumps of matcha powder in my mouth. Since it took so long to mix the matcha, by the time I finished mixing, the matcha is already cold. So these are all very common issues that my customers face. So when I receive these messages, I would try to answer each of these one by one, give them tips to try to guide them along. Sometimes it works. Honestly, sometimes it doesn't work. All until I reached this one advice that seemed to work universally for all my customers. So in this video, I'll reveal the one secret to make a matcha without fail. By the time you're finished watching, your matcha will look like someone with 5 years of experience had made it. I'll also be doing a demo of this tip at the end of this video, so make sure you don't miss that. I'll be using the Unkaku Matcha by Maruki Koyama, and this is one of my favorite matchas, to reward myself for making this video. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about what makes a delicious cup of matcha. Well, matcha is actually very similar to a cup of hot chocolate. So let's imagine yourself in a freezing cafe. You want to look for something that's going to warm you up, and you go to the counter and order a cup of hot chocolate. Okay, so the first thing you want to make sure is that the hot chocolate is velvety smooth. Then you want to make sure that the hot chocolate is hot. After all, it's a hot chocolate for a reason. And thirdly, you want to make sure that there's this nice thick foam on top. It makes it so much more enjoyable. So these 3 points apply to matcha as well. You want to make sure it's smooth, you want to make sure it's hot, you also want to make sure that there's this nice thick blanket of bubbles on top. But the thing about matcha is that these 3 components are not really easy to come by. So let's go into each of these components one by one and deep dive. Perhaps the most important factor is that you want to make sure the matcha is smooth. You want to make sure that there's no lumps of matcha powder remaining in the liquid when you drink it. That would be like having sand in your clam chowder. But the thing is, matcha is really difficult to completely dissolve. It's due to the fact that the particles of matcha are so small, and also they're very uneven, so due to the static electricity, they tend to lump together when they hit water, and it's very hard to dissolve. That's why they say use a strainer to sift the matcha before you mix it. However, this is not foolproof either. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. With this tip that we'll teach you today, you won't have to use a strainer, and still you'll be able to get the smooth matcha that you're looking for. Okay, point 2. You want the matcha to be hot. Just like coffee or any other tea for that matter, you want to make sure that you drink it while it's hot. It's not nearly as nice if it's lukewarm. However, for matcha, this is not easy to do either. If you use boiling water to make matcha, it will increase the astringency while reducing the umami. This is because the water temperature of over 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit tends to extract the astringency components of the taste of the matcha. However, on the other hand, if the temperature is too low, then it reduces the aroma and also the flavor of the matcha as well, so it wouldn't be as satisfactory either. So this is why there's this concept called temperature control, which is a relatively advanced skill. You want to make sure that the temperature of the water is not too hot, but also it's not too cold either. And there's a few ways to do this, but you can sit and wait to make the temperature reduce to 80 degrees, or you can take the boiling water and transfer it from cup to cup to make it reduce to 80 degrees as well, and then you can use that water. Now from there, you have to prepare fast enough so the water remains hot. You have to keep in mind that whisking the matcha will reduce the temperature significantly, so you have to act fast. However, with the secret step that we'll be teaching you today, you won't even have to think about water temperature either. Point 3. The rich foam. Now, honestly, this depends on the style. Some people like the rich foam, some people like matcha without the foam. So it's really up to you. Even in Japan, depending on the traditional tea house that you follow, this preference will be different. So the rationale behind why you don't want foam is because without the foam, you'll be able to enjoy the pure taste of the matcha itself. Now, I like foam. I like it because it makes the matcha mild. It's kind of like cappuccino. So if you're someone like me who likes foam and if you're not able to get the foam, then that'll obviously be a little bit of a disappointing cup of matcha. However, again, the foam is not really easy to produce either. Sometimes you'll be whisking for a full minute and you still can't get the foam and you have no idea why. You might think, hey, maybe I didn't have enough matcha powder, so I'll add a little bit matcha powder later, and that's like the worst thing you can do because that never worked. You might have received the advice of warming the bowl beforehand to make the matcha foam better, which is true. It does help foam the matcha better. However, that's also another tedious step to the preparation of matcha. And I tend to feel that the more steps there are, the more elusive matcha becomes. So it does take a few years to master making the foam. However, with the secret we'll be teaching you today, you'll achieve that foam the next time you try. Okay, so let's talk about the secret now. We'll go into the secret and then again we'll do the demonstration afterwards. So the secret is we take 1 tablespoon of room temperature water and then we mix it with the matcha powder beforehand. That's all. It's not hot water, it's not boiling water, it's room temperature water that we use, and that makes all the difference in the world. So you might be thinking, how could this make such a difference? Well, remember the 3 criteria to a delicious cup of matcha that we just talked about. This secret step actually addresses each one of these. Firstly, the velvety smooth texture. Matcha is actually easier to dissolve when you use room temperature water. It doesn't create as many lumps as when you would use hot water. So you get the smooth matcha you're looking for every single time. It always works. Secondly is the water temperature. Because you already used room temperature water to mix the matcha, now the rest of the water can just be plain boiling water. You can add 3 more tablespoons of boiling water and it'll reach that perfect 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit temperature that you're looking for. It's perfect. And thirdly, the foam. Because the matcha is mixed so well, now it's really easy to make the foam. It really makes a huge difference and you'll make foam that you've never seen before. Now, because we hit those 3 criteria with this one single step, it's actually quite difficult to fail now. Okay, for the items, we'll just use standard items today. So this is a matcha bowl. If you don't have a matcha bowl, you can just use any bowl from your kitchen. If you're going to do that, just make sure that you have a wide base for whisking, and then you want to make sure that the walls are high because you don't want the matcha to be splattering all over the place. We'll be using a teaspoon and a tablespoon. The teaspoon is for measuring the matcha powder, the tablespoon is for measuring the water. So as much as possible, we'll be using items you can find in the kitchen. If you have a bamboo scoop like this, you can also use this. Third item, we'll be using a bamboo whisk, and it's sitting on a chasen holder, a bamboo whisk holder, and that really helps the longevity of the chasen, so that's good. You just want to make sure that the bamboo whisk is pre-soaked. It'll reduce the chances that the bristles will break when you mix the matcha. And last but not least, we'll be using the Unkaku Matcha by Marikyu Koyama. This is a matcha that I really, really like. Let me open this, and yeah, the rich, creamy aroma you can already smell. I'm not sure if you can see the beautiful green, the vibrant green of the matcha, but this is what we'll be using today. Now, there's only 3 steps to making a matcha. The first one is pour the matcha into the bowl. Number 2 is the secret step where you take the room temperature water and mix with the matcha powder. And then 3 is finally you take boiling water and mix with the rest. Okay, so let's switch to my tabletop camera so you can see what I'm doing. Step 1 is pour matcha into the bowl. So we'll take 1 teaspoon of matcha powder. You want to make sure it's exactly 1 teaspoon. It's kind of like that. And you want to pour it into the matcha bowl. Now, if you have a bamboo scoop like this, you can use this to take 2 scoops. So that's all for step 1. It's really easy. We removed lots of steps. You don't have to sift the matcha powder using a strainer. You don't have to warm up the bowl beforehand. So it's a lot more easier. Now, the most important part of this step 1 is actually to take your bowl and sniff the dry matcha powder and indulge. So step 2, this is the secret step. We want to take 1 tablespoon of room temperature water and add it into the bowl and mix. Remember again, this has to be room temperature water. You can't use boiling water or hot water for this step because that tends to cause more lumps than room temperature water. So this is a tablespoon of water. And we'll just pour it into the matcha bowl like this. Now we want to take our bamboo whisk or chasen and we just want to start mixing. So there's really no correct way to mix. What I like to do is I just like to take the bamboo whisk and start to whisk in a circular motion like this. Some people might want to use the sides of the prongs of the whisk, and that's fine too. Any way that works for you. Just go gently and slowly. There's really only one key to this step, and this is to really take your time and enjoy. So actually, this is personally one of my favorite steps of preparing a matcha. Because as you mix, the first thing you'll notice, you can really smell the scent of the wet matcha that's really elevating to your nose. And it smells fantastic. As you do that, take your time to really make sure that all the powder is completely dissolved into the matcha. I would spend at least 30 seconds, 1 minute, maybe even more, just to make sure that the matcha powder is completely dissolved into the water. After a while, you'll be able to see the matcha really start to glow. And the glow is a sign that it's really nicely mixed already. Okay, step 3. We add 3 tablespoons of boiling water and mix. So I have boiling water prepared in this bowl right here. 3 tablespoons of boiling water and add it into the matcha bowl. So we'll just go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3. And altogether, that's about 60 milliliters of water, which is perfect for 1 serving of pure matcha. So we'll take our bamboo whisk again. We'll mix the matcha. There's no right way to do this, but first I like to use a circular motion to kind of roughly mix the matcha in the water. And while doing so, try to get some of the matcha powder off of the walls. And after a while, I'll start using an up and down motion to whip up the foam. So just go up and down, and as you do that, slowly slide the whisk side to side to capture the whole area of the bowl. And once you see enough bubbles, as you can see here, you want to slow down and slightly raise the whisk to the surface of the liquid, which is going to help crush the bigger bubbles that you have on top of the surface, and it'll make a very nice, fine foam that you're looking for. There you go. You see how remarkably easy it is now to completely mix the matcha? And how the foam really quickly developed just now. And it's not like I was whisking crazy fast either. It's actually really easy to reach this level of foam. How did you like that? I hope this tip helps you consistently make quality matcha. Please do try at home and let me know in the comments how it went. If you have any other questions or any kind of requests that you have for future videos, please do drop it in the comments below and I'll make sure I read them all. Please subscribe to catch any future videos on matcha and Japanese tea. Now, if I may, I would like to take some private time so I can enjoy my reward for making this video. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video. Take care until then.